I swear, I'll never forget the way they looked at me that night. The smirks. The little side eyes. The pity that dripped from every single word. It was supposed to be a family dinner, just a casual catch-up, before everyone headed to Aspen for our annual Christmas trip. Except this year, I wasn't invited. Not really. My cousin Grace, sitting across from me in her perfect designer sweater, tilted her head and said, "Oh, Amelia, you probably wouldn't enjoy it anyway. Everything's so expensive up there." I remember blinking at her for a second, trying to figure out if I'd misheard. "Expensive?" I repeated. My aunt chimed in before Grace could answer, stirring her drink. "Well, sweetie, you know how those resorts can be. You've had a rough year, right? Translation, you're broke. You don't belong with us anymore." And just like that, the table went quiet. My brother shifted uncomfortably, pretending to check his phone. My mom gave me that "please don't make a scene" look. But something in me snapped that night, quietly, deeply, the kind of snap that doesn't make a sound but changes everything. See, a year ago, I left my corporate marketing job, after being passed over for a promotion I'd earned with 3 years of sleepless nights. I'd started freelancing, building my own small branding agency from scratch. It wasn't easy, and yes, for a while, money was tight. But I was proud of what I was building. Apparently, though, in their eyes, if you didn't drive a new Mercedes or post luxury brunches on Instagram, you were a failure. Grace laughed softly and leaned toward my aunt. "It's fine, really. We'll just book our rooms without her. The resort might not even have availability for last-minute guests." That stung. Because last year, I'd been the one who booked everything. The flights, the cabins, even the private ski instructor. And now, suddenly, I wasn't part of we. I wanted to say something, to tell them that I was fine, that I was working on something big, that I didn't need their approval. But I didn't. Not that night. Instead, I smiled. That fake, calm kind of smile people mistake for defeat. And I said, "You're right. Maybe this year, I'll sit it out." They looked satisfied. Pitying smiles all around. But inside, I was already planning. Because what they didn't know, what no one at that table knew, was that I'd just signed the biggest client of my career. A luxury real estate group in California. A client who would change everything. I wasn't just getting by anymore. I was about to have more money than I'd ever dreamed of. And as I drove home that night, the laughter still echoing in my ears, one thought played over and over in my head like a drumbeat. They said I couldn't afford to join the trip. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd already decided I wasn't just going to join them. I was going to own the place they were staying in. The resort in Aspen. The one my family had been visiting for 15 years. I didn't care what it cost. I was going to buy it. Because if they wanted to make me feel small, they were about to learn just how expensive that lesson could be. When people say family keeps you grounded, they never talk about how sometimes it's because they're holding your wings down. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. The one who did everything right, on a roll, scholarships, stable job. My cousins partied, my brother dropped out of college twice, and yet somehow, I was always the one they quietly mocked for being too serious. I'm 31 now, living in Los Angeles. My parents moved to Florida years ago, and the rest of my extended family stayed clustered up in Colorado, the money side of the family, as they liked to call themselves. My Aunt Linda married into old money. Her husband owns a small chain of car dealerships. Grace, their daughter, lives off her trust fund and spends her time working as a lifestyle influencer. Meanwhile, I worked my way through college at night, landed a corporate job in marketing at a tech firm, and thought I was building something stable. I was making six figures by 28, had my own apartment in Pasadena, and felt successful. Until the promotion. I trained the new manager, who ended up taking the job I was promised. A 25-year-old with a fancy last name and zero experience. That day, something broke in me. I remember walking to my car, sitting behind the wheel, and just staring at my hands. I had done everything right, and still, I wasn't enough. So I quit. It was reckless and terrifying and probably the best decision I've ever made. At first, freelancing was brutal. I had a few small clients, mostly small businesses who couldn't pay much. I lived on savings for a while, eating ramen and counting every penny. My family didn't get it. Grace once called me during that time and said, "So you're like, unemployed by choice." She laughed like it was a punchline. I remember crying that night, not because I was ashamed, but because I realized how deeply they enjoyed watching me struggle. It made them feel better about their own lives. But life has a funny way of rewarding people who keep pushing. 6 months ago, everything changed. A former co-worker recommended me to a luxury real estate investor, someone looking for a branding overhaul. That someone turned out to be one of the biggest property developers in California. I poured my heart into that project, new website, full marketing strategy, rebranding for 6 properties. I barely slept for weeks, living on caffeine and adrenaline. When the contract was finalized, I remember seeing the number on the screen, $780,000. That was my cut. My agency's biggest deal ever. I cried again that night, but this time, it was from relief. For the first time in years, I didn't have to worry about rent or bills or groceries. I could breathe. I paid off my debts, invested wisely, and suddenly, I wasn't barely making it. I was thriving. Quietly. Privately. And when that family dinner happened, when they looked down on me with those smug little smiles, I realized I didn't need to prove my worth. I just needed to let my success speak for itself. But revenge. Revenge was irresistible. The Aspen resort had been our family's tradition since before I could walk. It was a luxury mountain retreat, all wooden lodges and private ski slopes. My uncle always booked the premium villa, bragging about how expensive it was. So when I got home that night, I opened my laptop and looked up the resort's name. I wasn't even thinking logically, it was pure emotion. But then I saw a small link at the bottom of the website, property for sale. Curious, I clicked it. It wasn't the entire resort, just a section of it. But still, it was for sale. My heart started pounding. I clicked through the photos and there it was, the main villa, the exact one my family stayed in every year. Price tag, $1.2 million. It was insane. Irresponsible. Completely over the top. And I couldn't stop smiling. Because in that moment, the humiliation from dinner faded. The years of being underestimated, the quiet judgment, the pity, all of it burned away, replaced by something new, a plan. A beautiful, petty, perfectly poetic plan. I was going to buy the villa. Not to show off. Not to rub it in. Just to remind them who they were dealing with. And maybe, just maybe, to remind myself too. Because this time, the girl they thought was struggling, was about to own the very place they said she couldn't afford to visit. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Grace's smirk, my aunt's condescending tone, the way everyone looked relieved when I said I wouldn't join the trip. It played on a loop in my head until anger turned into focus. So at 7 a.m., I made coffee, sat down at my desk, and called the number listed under the property for sale section of the Aspen Resorts site. Good morning, Snowcrest Luxury Properties, a cheery voice answered. How can I help you today? I hesitated for half a second before saying it out loud, the words that felt so surreal they sent a chill down my spine. Hi. I'm interested in purchasing one of your listed villas. Her tone immediately shifted from polite to professional. Of course. Which property are you referring to? The Summit Villa, I said. The one listed at $1.2 million. There was a small pause. That's one of our most exclusive listings. It's part of the Aspen Ridge Resort Complex. May I ask, are you a private buyer or representing a firm? Private buyer. Me? Amelia Carter, the girl who supposedly couldn't afford a family vacation. I almost laughed. Private buyer, I said calmly. I'd like to schedule a virtual tour and discuss details as soon as possible. From there, things moved fast. Within 48 hours, I was speaking directly with the resort's management and the property broker. The villa had been privately listed for a few months. Apparently, the original owner was retiring and wanted to sell discreetly. No big public listings, no flashy announcements. It was exactly the kind of quiet deal that could happen without my family ever knowing, until I wanted them to. The broker, a confident woman named Chelsea, said, the owner's asking $1.2 million, but they might be open to negotiation. Would you like me to arrange a walkthrough? Absolutely, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Let's do it this week. That afternoon, I transferred the initial deposit from my business account. Seeing that much money move out of my account felt surreal, terrifying, actually. But it also felt right. Like taking back control after years of being underestimated. Still, part of me wondered if I was losing it. Buying a resort villa just to prove a point. It sounded insane. But then I'd picture Grace's face, the smug tilt of her head, the pity in her voice, and the doubt would vanish. During the walkthrough, Chelsea's camera swept across the villa's interior, massive stone fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains, 5 bedrooms, a private deck with a hot tub, even a chef's kitchen. This is where your family stayed every year, she asked after I mentioned it. Yeah, I said softly. They loved to brag about it. She smiled. Well, looks like you'll be the one doing the bragging now. I didn't answer. I didn't want to brag. I wanted silence. Power. The quiet kind of victory that doesn't need words. 2 weeks later, the sale was finalized. Just like that, the villa was mine. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my mom. I wanted it to be perfect. I started making calls, to the resort's concierge, to the new management team, to the private chef who'd been serving our family for years. Hi, I'd say in a casual tone. This is Amelia Carter, the new owner of the Summit Villa. Every single time, I heard that tiny gasp on the other end. It never got old. I had the property deed couriered to me in a sleek black folder. When it arrived, I held it in my hands for a long time. It wasn't just paper, it was proof. Proof that I wasn't small, or struggling, or the charity case they made me out to be. But my revenge wasn't complete yet. The family trip was coming up in just over a month, and I had a plan forming. A delicious, perfectly timed plan. I wasn't going to tell them I owned the villa. Not yet. I was going to let them book their trip, show up at their favorite lodge, and watch their faces when they realized they were standing in my home. They thought I was too broke to join the trip. They were about to check into my front door. The next few weeks were a strange kind of bliss. For once, I had the upper hand, and no one knew it. Every family group chat message became fuel for my quiet satisfaction. Grace was sending photos of her ski outfits. Can't wait to hit Aspen again. Same villa, Same view, same family tradition, light skin toenail Polish hand snowflake hash. My uncle replied with the usual dad joke about champagne breakfasts. My mom sent heart emojis. I said nothing. I'd muted the group, of course. But I still checked it every night before bed, smiling to myself. They had no idea that the villa they were bragging about had a new owner. Me? Still, I had to make sure everything lined up perfectly. I wasn't just going to show up randomly. I wanted it to look effortless, like the universe itself had flipped in my favor. So I called the resort a few times to confirm details, ensuring my name was on all the property records, arranging for staff to know who I was, even having the locks updated with a new smart entry system. Everything was seamless. Until that call. It was a Wednesday afternoon when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I answered, expecting it to be a supplier or client. "Hi, is this Amelia Carter?" a polite male voice asked. "Yes, this is she. This is Daniel, manager at Aspen Ridge Resort. I wanted to touch base with you about a small issue regarding your property booking system." My stomach dropped. What kind of issue? He hesitated. "We just received a reservation request for the Summit Villa through our standard family account. Under the name of Linda Matthews. My aunt." I gripped the phone tighter. "Go on." "Well, the Matthews family has been annual guests for over a decade, so the staff didn't realize the villa had changed ownership. They assumed it was the same arrangement as before. But since the property is now privately owned, I wanted to check with you before confirming anything." I had to bite back a laugh, part shock, part panic. Of course Linda would try to book it. She always managed the family trip. She probably thought she owned the place in spirit. But Daniel wasn't done. They've already prepaid a deposit through the old system, which technically isn't valid anymore since the villa is no longer available for public bookings. Oh, this was messy. Perfectly, beautifully messy. "Here's what I'd like you to do," I said slowly, steadying my voice. "Keep their booking as pending. Don't decline it yet. I'll handle it personally." "Of course, Ms. Carter. Should I notify them of the change in ownership?" I smiled, imagining Grace's face when that email arrived. "No," I said. "Not yet. I'll take care of that." After we hung up, I sat there in stunned silence, my heart racing. This was it. The moment where everything could either come together or completely fall apart. Because if Linda found out too soon, she'd cancel the trip. And my perfect reveal would vanish. So I opened my laptop and drafted an email from my company account. Professional, formal, and perfectly vague. Subject: Your upcoming Aspen stay. Dear Mrs. Matthews, we're excited to welcome you to Aspen Ridge Resort this winter. Please note that the villa's management has been recently updated under private ownership. There are no expected changes to your upcoming stay. Thank you for your continued patronage, Aspen Ridge Management. It was technically true. Just not the full truth. I hit send. An hour later, Grace texted the family group. "Looks like the resort changed ownership, but everything's fine. I just confirmed our booking." Smiling face with sunglasses sparkles. "Aspen, here we come." I had to put my phone down before I started laughing out loud. Everything was falling into place. Except, part of me started feeling something unexpected. Not guilt, but nerves. A flicker of unease. What if this went too far? What if it backfired somehow? Then I remembered that dinner, their faces, their voices, the humiliation. And I felt that familiar fire again. They had written me off. Laughed behind my back. Told me I couldn't afford to belong. Now, they were paying to stay in my home. And they wouldn't find out until I walked through the door. I marked the dates on my calendar, sent my assistant a message to clear my schedule, and started packing. Because next week, I wasn't going to Aspen as the poor cousin. I was going as the owner. The drive up to Aspen felt like stepping into another life. Snow-capped trees lined the winding mountain roads, the air was crisp and sharp, and every turn brought back memories, most of them unpleasant. I'd made this drive countless times before, always in the back seat of someone else's car, always tagging along, half invited. This time, I was alone. In my own SUV. With my name on the property deed sitting in the glove compartment. When I pulled up to the resort gates, the guard greeted me warmly. "Welcome back, Ms. Carter. Your villa's ready. Keys are digitized to your phone as requested." It felt surreal hearing that, your villa. Not the Matthews family villa. Not the resort villa. Mine. I took a deep breath as I parked near the lodge entrance. The mountain air burned cold against my cheeks, but it felt clean. Liberating. Inside, everything was exactly how I remembered it. The faint smell of cedarwood, the giant chandelier over the lobby, the staff wearing that same crisp uniform. Except this time, when I checked in, they didn't treat me like a guest. They treated me like someone who belonged. As I was signing a few last-minute documents at the reception, I heard it, that familiar voice I'd know anywhere. "Oh my God, Amelia." I turned, and there she was. Grace. Dressed head to toe in designer ski wear, oversized sunglasses perched on her head even though it was snowing. "Hey," I said casually, as if we hadn't spoken since that humiliating dinner a month ago. She blinked. "Wait, you're here. I thought you weren't coming this year." I smiled. Changed my mind. Her eyes darted to my outfit, plain wool coat, nothing flashy. I could see the wheels turning in her head. "Good for you," she said finally, voice dripping in that sugar-sweet tone she used when pretending to be kind. "I'm sure Mom will be surprised." "Oh, I bet she will," I said softly. We chatted awkwardly for a few minutes, until my uncle's voice echoed from across the lobby. "Grace? Grab the luggage. Linda's checking us in." Grace waved and hurried off, leaving me standing there with my heart pounding. I didn't want to see my aunt yet. Not until the timing was perfect. So I quietly slipped out before they noticed me again. When I arrived at the villa, I swear my breath caught in my throat. It looked even more beautiful than I remembered. The stone fireplace crackled with fresh logs, the mountain view shimmered through the glass, and the table was set for 6, just like it always had been. Except this time, I'd made sure to leave one little change, a small, gold-embossed sign near the entrance that read, "Summit Villa, private property of A. Carter." It was subtle. Elegant. And I couldn't wait to see who noticed it first. That evening, the family texted in the group chat, "Grace, dinner at the main lodge, 7 p.m. Amelia, you're coming, right?" Linda, "Yes, dear, we'll grab a table for you. So glad you could make it this year. Must have been hard to get time off from." Freelancing face throwing a kiss, that last line made my jaw tighten. But instead of replying, I sent a thumbs up emoji and closed my phone. At 7 sharp, I walked into the restaurant. The place was buzzing, laughter, clinking glasses, the faint scent of roasted garlic and pine. My family was already there. Grace waved me over. "Oh look, it's our comeback girl," my uncle joked as I sat down. "Did you win the lottery or something?" I laughed politely. "Something like that." Linda raised an eyebrow. "Well, we're just happy you could afford to come this year. I know things have been tight for you." I nearly choked on my water. "Tight?" She said it like she was commenting on my waistline. I wanted to tell her that I'd just wired $1.2 million to buy the villa she thought she owned by tradition. That her deposit had gone straight into my account. But I bit my tongue. Not yet. Dinner was filled with the usual bragging, Grace talking about her influencer deals, my uncle complaining about taxes on his vacation home, my mom quietly trying to keep the peace. But there was an energy under the surface. My presence was unsettling them. They couldn't figure out how I'd managed to show up, unannounced, uninvited, and completely at ease. At one point, Grace leaned closer and whispered, "So where are you staying? The lodge? Oh, or maybe you splurged on a suite." I smiled. "Something like that." She grinned, clearly thinking she'd scored a win. "Well, we're in our usual villa, of course. Mom was lucky to snag it again. It's practically a family heirloom at this point." My heart skipped. There it was. The moment I'd been waiting for. I leaned back in my chair, my expression calm. "That's funny," I said softly, swirling my wine. "Because I heard the villa changed ownership this year." Linda looked up sharply. "Changed ownership? What do you mean?" I shrugged. "Oh, I just thought it wasn't available to guests anymore." The table went quiet for a beat too long. Then my uncle laughed. "Don't worry, kiddo. They'd never sell our villa. We've been staying there for 15 years. I smiled, holding his gaze. "Yeah," I said. "I know." Because what I didn't tell them, not yet, was that in less than 12 hours, they were about to find out exactly who bought it. I barely slept that night. Not from nerves, more from anticipation. You know that feeling before a performance, when the curtain's about to rise and everyone's watching, but they don't yet know what's coming. That was me. At dawn, I got up early, pulled on a soft cream sweater, and made myself coffee in the villa's kitchen, the same kitchen my aunt always bragged about knowing the staff so well in. Now, the staff answered to me. I checked every detail, the sign by the door polished, the fireplace roaring, the welcome baskets arranged with champagne and truffles. The staff had done a perfect job. It didn't look like a rental. It looked like a home, my home. By 9:30 a.m., I got a message in the family group chat, "Grace, heading to the villa. Who's ready for vacation 2.0? Snowman # perfect timing." I stood by the window, watching the winding drive below, my heart thudding against my ribs. A black SUV appeared first, followed by a white Range Rover. I recognized the license plates instantly. They were here. I heard voices before I saw them, Grace shouting something about her ski gear, my uncle telling the valet to be careful with his luggage, Linda barking orders at the resort staff like she owned the place. Old habits die hard. The front door opened and Linda stepped in first, still mid-sentence. "Honestly, I thought they'd have the place prepped better. I emailed them about," she stopped. Dead in her tracks. Her eyes landed on the gold sign mounted beside the fireplace. Summit Villa, private property of A. Carter. For a moment, no one spoke. Grace blinked. My uncle frowned. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. Then Linda laughed, a sharp, confused sound. "Wait, what? A. Carter. Must be a coincidence, right?" That was my cue. "Not really," I said from behind them, leaning casually against the kitchen counter. Every head turned. Grace froze mid-step, her mouth half open. My uncle looked like someone had unplugged his brain. Linda blinked, her face twisting into a mix of disbelief and irritation. "Amelia," she said slowly, "what are you doing here?" "Having coffee," I said simply. "In my living room." She gestured toward the sign, her voice rising. You're saying this is your villa? Technically, it's a house, I said lightly. But yeah. I bought it last month. For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence. No one breathed. Even the crackle of the fireplace seemed to fade. Then Grace laughed nervously. Oh, come on, Amelia. You're joking, right? I held up the black folder that had arrived by courier, the one with the embossed resort seal. No joke. I opened it, turned it toward them. The title deed gleamed under the light. Effective immediately, I read, ownership of the Summit Villa transfers to Miss Amelia Grace Carter. Linda's face drained of color. My uncle blinked like he was trying to do math in his head. Grace just whispered, "You're kidding." I told you, I said softly, things have changed. My mom, bless her heart, looked equal parts proud and horrified. Amelia, you bought the villa. I nodded. I did. Linda finally found her voice, though it came out sharp. Why on earth would you do that? This was our family's place. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? Because I remember someone saying I probably couldn't afford to join you this year. And yet, here we are. Grace groaned. Oh my God, that was just a joke. No, it wasn't. I stepped closer, my tone calm but steady. You said I wouldn't enjoy it because it's too expensive. And Aunt Linda agreed. Remember that? Linda's jaw tightened. You're being dramatic. Maybe. I smiled faintly. Or maybe I'm just showing you what expensive looks like. The room hung in heavy silence again. My uncle finally cleared his throat. Well, that's impressive, Amelia. Truly. But where does that leave us? We have a reservation here. I shrugged. You had a reservation. But since this is private property now, there's no public booking anymore. Grace's eyes widened. You mean? I nodded. Yeah. You can't stay here. Not unless I invite you. Linda actually sputtered. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious, I said. Don't worry. I already arranged for your reservation to be transferred to the lodge. They'll take great care of you. My uncle looked torn between pride and panic. Grace looked ready to cry. Linda looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. For once, I wasn't the girl they pitied. I wasn't the one being talked down to. I was the one holding the keys. Still, as I watched them stand there in disbelief, something inside me wavered. It wasn't satisfaction or guilt, it was something in between. Because revenge feels good, until you realize how quiet it is afterward. It was close to midnight when I heard the knock. Soft, hesitant. Not the kind of knock that demanded entry, the kind that asked for permission. I opened the door, and there was Grace. No makeup, no perfect hair, just a puffy jacket and red eyes. Can I come in? She asked quietly. I nodded, stepping aside. She walked in slowly, glancing around the villa like she was seeing it for the first time. After a moment, she sighed. I didn't mean what I said, you know. About the trip. I was just being stupid. I studied her face. For once, there wasn't a trace of arrogance, just honesty. I know, I said. But it still hurt. She nodded, eyes wet. You've always been the one who worked hard. I guess we made fun of that because it made us feel better about not doing the same. That hit harder than I expected. For a while, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the crackle of the fireplace. Then Grace looked up. You earned this, Amelia. You really did. And somehow, that meant more than the villa ever could. morning sunlight spilled across the villa when I woke to shouting outside. Through the window, I saw my Aunt Linda standing by the driveway, phone in hand, arguing with someone, loudly. By the time I stepped outside, she was in full meltdown mode. "This is ridiculous," she barked into the phone. "We've been loyal guests for years. There has to be a mistake." When she saw me, her eyes narrowed. "You think this is funny, Amelia? Buying the villa just to humiliate your family?" I folded my arms. "No. I bought it because I could. The humiliation part. That's on you." Her face turned crimson. "You've always been ungrateful. We tried to help you, by telling me I couldn't afford to exist around you." I shot back. "That wasn't help. That was cruelty." For a moment, she said nothing. Then she pointed a finger at me. "You'll regret this." She stormed off toward the lodge, snow crunching under her boots. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood there, heart pounding, realizing that revenge had officially turned into a war. That afternoon, I was sipping coffee by the window when my phone rang. It was Daniel, the resort manager. His tone was uneasy. "Ms. Carter, I wanted to inform you there's been a formal complaint filed regarding the ownership of the Summit Villa." My heart skipped. "A complaint? By who?" He hesitated. "Mrs. Linda Matthews. She's claiming the sale was illegitimate, that the villa was promised to her family under a long-term arrangement." I laughed, though my stomach twisted. "That's absurd. I bought it directly from the owner." "I know," Daniel said carefully, "but she's contacted our corporate office and is threatening legal action. They've asked for proof of your purchase and intent." I felt the heat rush to my face. Of course Linda wouldn't back down quietly. She wasn't just angry, she was embarrassed. And nothing infuriates her more than losing control. "Send them everything," I said firmly. "The deed, the contract, the payment receipts. Let her see exactly how real this is." He promised to handle it, but even after hanging up, my hands trembled. Linda wasn't finished. And I was starting to realize, neither was I. I found Linda later that evening in the main lodge lobby, surrounded by family. The air froze the moment I walked in, conversations stopped mid-sentence. She turned, her glare sharp enough to cut glass. "Here to flaunt your money again?" I stepped closer, calm but steady. "No. I'm here to tell you this ends today." Her mouth curled. "You think owning a house makes you better than us?" I smiled faintly. "No. But it proves I was never less than you." For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Even Grace looked shocked. I pulled out a folder, the deed, contracts, all neatly printed. I set it on the table. "That's legal proof. I own the villa outright. You can stop calling corporate." Linda's face went pale. She opened the folder, flipped through the pages, then slammed it shut. "This is unbelievable," she hissed. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." "No," I said softly. "You did that yourself when you decided I wasn't good enough to be part of this family." I turned to leave, the room silent behind me. For once, they had nothing left to say. The next morning, I woke to a knock on my door, again. But this time, it wasn't Grace or Linda. It was Daniel, the resort manager, holding an envelope. "Morning, Ms. Carter," he said with a small smile. "I thought you'd want this delivered personally." Inside was a handwritten note, from the former owner of the villa. "Amelia, I heard what happened with your family. When I sold you this home, I hoped it would go to someone who understood its real value, not just the price. You clearly do. Welcome home." Attached was something else. an official certificate naming me a partner investor in the resort chain. Apparently, the previous owner had put in a recommendation based on my purchase and business background. I stood there, stunned. Not only did I own the villa, I now had a stake in the entire resort. Later, as I watched my family pack their bags in awkward silence, Grace came up to me one last time. "I'm proud of you, Amelia," she whispered. "You didn't just win, you grew." I smiled, watching the snow fall over my property. Revenge had brought me here. But peace was what I was finally taking home.